Welcome to the Chirosation, where chiropractors share their stories and lessons learnt in practice. The intention of the Chirosation is to provide resources and a community that will help chiropractors realise their innate potential. So join the Chirosation today. In this episode, I catch up with Dr. Jade and Dr. Jake from Thrive Chiropractic Co in the Sunshine Coast of Australia. They have had a dream to start their own practice since starting chiropractic college, and this dream has finally come to fruition 6 months ago. In this episode, they share the lessons learnt and their experiences from this process. We go over what worked really well for them and some essential tools that you need to understand about business before you can open your doors. I had a blast recording this episode, so I'll know you enjoy it too. So without further ado, enjoy this Chirosation. Welcome to the Chirosation. I'm really excited today to finally have Dr. Jade and Dr. Jake all the way from sunny Australia. They're on their lunch break, heading into the weekend, so they're ripped and ready to have a chat about chiropractic and their experiences over the last 6 months opening their own practice. So welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hey, Ben.
So today, first thing I want to talk about is what got you into chiropractic in the first place?
Oh my God.
You can take that one. Yep.
Ladies first.
Yeah, what's my chiropractic journey began just around about 9 years ago, actually. I stumbled into a job as a CA. I'd actually studied a Bachelor of Science degree down in Dunedin, majoring in human reproduction and development. So I'd always had a pretty keen interest in human beings and what sort of allows a human being to go from two tiny little cells into the miracles that we are. And so I had enough of the cold in Dunedin. I was down there for 3 years, moved to the Gold Coast, which was at the time only meant to be a one summer sort of journey, and it ended up being a long time. And so I started work as a CA, and literally within my first couple of weeks there, I was able to witness some chiropractic miracles. I saw a couple who'd been trying to conceive a baby for 8 years. By their quote, tried everything before, various different things, and just hadn't been able to have this baby. And the time I started, they'd been seeing the chiropractors there for about 3 months, the pair of them. And then I was fortunate enough to be there when they said that they had finally conceived. So, I started kind of thinking, well, maybe this is something that I could invest my time and effort back into. And, it just sort of went from there. Decided to go and study, and now here we are.
Amazing. That's very, very exciting. And what about you, Jake?
For mine, I guess it was, for me, the philosophy was just simple, and it really made sense. There'd been a sort of long-term health journey with me since late 90s, and I've been searching for that thing or that tool to empower the body to give it what it needs to function at a higher level, to function the way it's supposed to. And tried a lot of things, and went through naturopathy and acupuncture and various different modalities. And it wasn't until I met Jade that she introduced me to the principles of chiropractic and the philosophy that goes along with that. And it just made sense. Got myself booked in to see a local chiropractor who was a graduate with NZCC, actually in the town that we are now operating our own practice. So it was less than a dozen visits in, and I decided to get along and invest my time in that as well, because I'd found myself telling people about this process or this principle, and kept finding myself wanting for more information when they'd ask me, well, how does this work? How does it relate to X, Y, and Z? And I'd keep going back to the chiropractor and asking her questions, and she'd give me more, and so on and so forth. But
that doesn't sound like you, Jake, going back and asking more questions.
It sounds nothing like me, and I knew you'd
someone
enjoy
that wants to know everything.
Yeah. So I thought, well, look at this. I'm going to, I'll go and study it myself. Why do I have to go back to the chiropractor and ask her all the questions? I'll go learn it all from the source.
Good on you. Good on you guys. Well, it really kind of sounds like chiropractic more found you guys than you went out searching for chiropractic.
Yeah, and I think that's always the way, isn't it?
Certainly, well, I mean, it certainly was for me, probably quite similar to Jake, I think, in that I wasn't really searching for it. I'd never really experienced a chiropractor before, but all of a sudden discovering it was like, wow, this just makes sense. Why was I not aware of this before?
Why did someone not tell me this 10, 15 years ago?
I know.
And if you find it, you just want to do everything you can so that you can study it, make it a part of your life, and share it with other people.
And that drives us in practice as well. We want people to know from a young age. We want families to understand what it is that chiropractic offers, and that the body is able to heal, regulate, control itself if you provide the environment appropriate for that.
Oh, hell yeah. So then because obviously going through college and thinking about the future, what's the next step? Are we going to start our own thing? Are we going to be associates? What was that journey like for you guys, and what inspired you to start a practice pretty much straight out of college?
Always wanted to.
Yeah?
In the early days when we thought, let's go do this, Jade had already deferred a number of years. She would have been, had she started in her first year of enrollment without deferral, she would have been done, 2 years earlier. So it was kind of a turn of fate in a way that we crossed paths before that happened. So the goal was always to start our own thing. And there were definitely some transitions through college where it was up, down, associating, locuming, and eventually it came back to let's start our own.
Good on you. Good on you. And so when obviously that decision was made, how long did it take for you to decide kind of where you want to live? Because I think that's kind of the next big choice, right? It's like, all right, let's do this. Well, where are we going to do it?
That was not an easy decision.
It
that
was
literally from when we first met, with Jake being Australian and me being a Kiwi. It was always going to be, a point of discussion, shall we say?
A few spirited ones.
Yeah. I don't know. It eventually just came down to, and I think it was actually John DeSano who said this to us years ago, and it's sort of just rung true for both of us and stuck in our head ever since. He said, build your practice where you want to live. So build your practice where you want to live. And that was just, we had to figure out, well, where the hell do we want to live and what does that look like? And so for us, that was kind of centered around, choosing our values and what we actually wanted from our days and what we wanted from our environment. And the decision to come to the Sunshine Coast was basically around, it's paradise here. We get up, we walk on the beach in the morning, we go to practice for a couple of hours, and then, we'll go for a swim back at the beach or the lake. We're out, we're active, we're doing stuff that we love to do, and surrounded by what seems to be a community of people that, are pretty healthy in comparison to a lot of parts of the world. So.
And definitely invest in their health in one way, shape or form.
Yeah. So I guess everyone has different value systems. So some people like the city, some people like the country, but for us, there was a massive draw towards the coast. Yeah.
But if that decision for us to start our own practice took, ultimately 5 years, the decision to decide, or the process to decide on where to make that, it was realistically that full 5-year period. And even when we got really committed to actually making that decision, it was a good 12 months.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, when you do start a practice, I think that is you made a really, really good point. And John Masano, shout out, because I think it so rings true. You have to start a practice where you want to live. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. Because the thing is, with growing a practice, well, at least this has been my experience from talking with different people and trying to figure this whole thing out, right? Is you have to be there for a long time. You have to engage in the community. You become part of the community. You become the chiropractor. And to do that just takes time to embed yourself in that community.
Absolutely. And that was a bit of it's probably a decent segue into us actually finding where on the Sunshine Coast it is that we wanted to exist. We knew where we wanted to live. We both love Bridgeon Beach. It's a really cool, small, modern village, I guess you could describe it as. I actually grew up in Bridgeon Beach, and it's where we always wanted to end up.
Cool.
And funny enough, we looked everywhere else first. We looked everywhere else, and we probably spent a good 4 to 5 weeks searching other locations just purely because there was 2 chiropractors in Peregian Beach already.
Hmm.
You know, so we went up to Noosa and we had we submitted an offer on a premises there that was, you know, thankfully now denied, but at the time it was a bit of a shell shock, and we started looking around Maroochydore way, down the other end of the Sunshine Coast, and we kind of looked at each other one day and thought, well, you know, let's get clear on what we want and where we want it. And it wasn't until we actually got clear and focused on,
And wrote it down.
yeah, that thing that we want from our life, that it was like, it's in Peregian Beach, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then within a week, we'd found the place.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Signed, sealed, delivered within a couple of weeks after that. So, yeah, that was a pretty big lesson for us, I think. Like, why don't we just get clear on what we wanted, what a concept, before we actually go and charge in and do the work.
Good on you guys. That's funny. But that is what it is. It's just kind of figuring out what you want, and then all of a sudden you just kind of go, this is what I want. Oh, wow, the universe goes, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Finally, you guys figured it out. Shameless promotion. Where is it? Where are you guys? All the listeners, go and check them out. Go say hi.
We are in Peregian Beach on the Sunshine Coast. It's about 10 minutes south of Noosa Heads.
100 metres back from the beach, which I love.
Yeah.
Good view.
It's a nice place to visit, but it's right on the main road on David Low Way as you go through Peregian Beach.
Yeah,
That's
Peregian
awesome.
Beach Village is awesome. It's just a gorgeous little community. It's a beachside town. Lots of little families around there. Lots of boutique stores. Great coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we love it.
Yeah, but to give you a bit of an appreciation as to what the place is actually like, the majority of the shops in Peregian Village won't open until 10 a.m. any day.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, and I mean, again, me kind of looking around and trying to figure out how this whole chiropractic thing works is a lot of the more successful chiropractic offices tend to be in more kind of community, smaller town villages, rural environments than the big kind of hustle bustle of the big cities. Because people tend to refer more. They tend to talk about you more.
Mm.
And is that...
And that's probably we've already seen that, the impact of that. It is a small community and people do talk and refer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the scheme of things, when you think of, you know, chiropractors per capita, it is a very densely populated area of the planet with regards to that. I mean, there's 130 chiropractors on the Sunshine Coast for a population of, I'd be even guessing at a number of 250,000 from one end to the other.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of chiropractors to service that area, and you're right, it's getting in that community so you can draw those referrals out and, you know, capitalise on the positive experiences people are having in your practice.
Absolutely.
And we see that as a negative, being, you know,
No,
literally
absolutely
there's
not.
2 other offices within 100 metres from us. But I guess, you know, we knew that going in, and we are very different to those other 2 practices. And so it just elevates the profession as a whole, I think, because
Definitely.
you know, there's more community recognition of what chiropractic is and what it can do. So yeah, I think it's cool.
Yep, absolutely.
I 100% agree. And I mean, look, yes, so what, there's 100 and something chiros there. There is way more people than the chiropractors can handle.
Exactly.
If 20% of the population called you guys tomorrow, there wouldn't be enough to handle it. There wouldn't be enough chiros to handle it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you've set yourselves up awesomely, and I love the photos of the practice. I think you've just done such a good job making it just this kind of beautiful, welcoming, wonderful environment and a real kind of nice feel to make it chiropractic, you know what I mean? It's not sterile, it's not kind of medically or anything. I think it quite represents you guys really well as being different.
Thanks, Ben.
We definitely wanted to create something that in our eyes was visually appealing and perhaps a point of difference as well, it being a bit more modern and fresh than some of the, I guess, other places that we'd experienced, and that was important for us.
Nice.
And we are proud of it. I mean, it's not like we're doing what we do. We love it. We love going into practice, but having an environment like that to go into just, you know, makes it a little bit more special.
Definitely. Well, you want it to be exciting, right? You want to go have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some lessons learned, some things that you've kind of learned over the last 6 months. What would you do again, and what wouldn't you do?
How much time you got, Ben?
I got some time.
No, I'm just playing. I mean, there's there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, if we start from the very, very start, it's get clear on what you want and where you want it nice and early. Like, if you know you want to start a practice, make the decision and start looking early.
Yeah, and definitely I would agree with that. And getting clear on if a practice is actually, your own practice is what you actually want. Having your own practice is not for everybody. You might just be someone that wants to go into the office, build your practice, and then leave at the end of the day and not have to, worry about paying the bills or how you're going to market or, what the accounts are doing. And that's fine. It's got to suit you and your lifestyle and what you want out of it. But I think for us, we really wanted something to call our own space. We're both, I guess you could say, strong-willed people. And
Jade more so than I am, Ben.
He's been in class with you. He knows.
I know.
I think for us, we wanted something to call our own, and we wanted to be able to walk away and say that we'd created this, and similarly we wanted to reap all the rewards selfishly as well.
But I think once, to go back to the what would we do more of and what would we do less of, I think once that decision's made, there isn't a rush. I mean, in hindsight, we probably would have put our, fit out off by about a month, because we gave ourselves a pretty restricted time frame to actually get the job done, to open the doors. So after we left NZ, I had a couple of locums booking over here, up in North Queensland.
Nice.
One of them was finishing off basically just as we were to sign the lease, and then the other one would start about 3 weeks later. So we had that 3-week window, which turned out to be 2 weeks, 5 days, to do our entire fit out.
Far out. That's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
a
couple of intense weeks.
It was very intense, and we wouldn't have done it without the help of family, my brother and his partner, and it was awesome to have the help we had.
Nice.
But I think from a bare naked shell that was actually in pretty poor condition when we first moved in, to turn it into what is there, I would have thought another couple of weeks would have been, a good move on our part. But hindsight is a pretty powerful thing. So just take your time and give yourself the time to do it right.
Yeah. And I think
I definitely
just to jump on,
absolutely.
I totally agree. But just to jump on, because I think you guys have a really, really interesting, unique perspective on kind of opening up a practice relatively soon out of college. Is obviously, Jade, you've practiced for a year as an associate, and Jake, you've gone straight out of college, done a few locums, and then straight into practice. And having obviously discussed that between the two of you, do you think there's strengths or merits about doing either? Or do you think you can graduate and go straight into practice by yourself? Or do you think it's beneficial to associate for a little while?
Well, I think that's a very individualised question. I don't think there's a blanket answer for every person. Every student's going to be different.
Sure.
I think if you have a strong goal in mind, and with absolution what you want to do and how you're going to create it, then maybe and that is opening your own practice, then maybe opening your own practice straight out of school is fine. If you're someone that feels like, you need that clinical experience or that mentorship. I mean, I spent 15 months with Simon Kelly, and that experience was invaluable to me. In as much as, the mentoring that he was able to give me and building the practice, maintaining a practice, learning things about marketing, learning the back scenes behind, how and why certain aspects of business do and don't work. And if I can add to that, if Jade hadn't had that experience or the level and depth of understanding she had, I may have had a little bit more reluctance to jump in and start straight out of college.
Yeah.
But I knew that she had a very, very solid grounding from what she'd done with Simon and Pat at Mount Eden for the last 15 months.
And also having been a CA before as well, I mean, that experience as well has kind of, that's been invaluable too, to kind of take that knowledge of the front desk and the back desk.
But from a entirely straight out of college, straight out of NZCC and into a new practice, what I would say is the locums that I did, even if you feel like your skill levels are up to scratch to go and start your practice, which I didn't at the time of graduating, but even if you did, it's getting comfortable with the volume that a fully operating practice sees, and it kind of gives you a bit more of a appreciation for where you want to be, where you want to shoot for, and that I guess lets you set up your practice the way you will practice. For example, you want to be able to have sufficient time with people, but you don't want to be spending 15 minutes with every person you see and have a goal of seeing 180 people a week. It's just not going to work. So to have that, a little bit of exposure to the real world, that was a positive for me going into practice for sure.
Definitely. Because, when you're at school, everything is, well, in my mind at least anyway, when I went through, I felt there was a massive emphasis on adjusting and being able to adjust. And that's because you're learning this whole new skill set that's, when you start out, it's pretty foreign, and you're just starting to get your head and your hands around it by the time you come out. And so, there's this big weight on adjusting, that if you haven't gleaned all of the information about marketing and business and, admin, accounts, all that sort of stuff, you really need a knowledge base of all of that before you can say, hey, I'm ready to open my own business. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And then be able to get your practice to a point where you can then outsource those tasks that you don't enjoy to somebody else.
Yeah. Because you realise that all of those tasks that you need to do, there's no one else to do them in the beginning, it's all you, and your adjusting becomes the thing that, you don't need to focus on because you've got that down. You've just been doing it for the last however many years. Yeah. It's everything else that needs to strengthen the work. And that's kind of what we found probably challenging in the first few months at least. It's, now I'm wearing all these different hats. And sometimes you're the chiropractor, and sometimes you're the business person, and sometimes you're the marketer. So that was a new challenge, I think, particularly.
But a cool one.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. But you guys, the personalities that you guys have, you would jump at that opportunity, and I'm sure you'd be very, very successful at it. So it wouldn't be a problem. But in looking ahead, and then kind of going along with what you said, Jake, is outsourcing those tasks that you feel they can be better spent with someone else doing it. What's your kind of time frame in terms of getting a CA, growing the practice, that kind of stuff? What are you kind of looking at in terms of achieving over, say, the next 6 to 18 months?
Well, it's interesting that the time frame and goals sort of popped up. We'd only just sort of discussed this, earlier this year.
Because just for some perspective, you guys have only been open for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still young practice.
Baby.
Yeah. Definitely the toddler chiropractic at the moment. Well, I think for me, I would love to have a full-time CA operating in our practice. 6 month mark. This year, by middle of the year, I would love to have that. Cool. That would be fantastic. And I think if we can do it earlier, brilliant, because it's only going to open up that space for more growth, because you're freeing up, essentially, effectively one whole person, one whole chiropractor to get out and do the things that need to be done.
Because at the moment, how we're working it is, if I'm the chiropractor, then Jake's the CA, and then Jake's the chiropractor, I'm the CA. So
yeah.
For the next month anyway, I'm Super CA. Then I'm CA. Yeah.
Super CA.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that for just some background. Jake really messed up his knee, which is not what you want when you're starting your own business and starting your own practice, is to have some kind of massive injury which puts you out of practice.
You do not. And that was 3.5 months after we opened. Yeah. That was mid-November. And I'm still not back practicing.
Yeah.
So really get the priorities straight in your mind as to what you love and must do and what you enjoy and will do. Because what I was doing at the time when I did it, I enjoy it and I like it, but I don't love it. It's not something I need to do. I was playing touch football with a bunch of the boys I used to play a lot with growing up. And I've just started off, we just finished off the second season. It was the last game of the season, last touch of the game. And it was basically a hyperextension pivot shift injury. I demolished the entire knee. Everything but the PCL was done. So it required surgery early December is when we scheduled that for. So now we're essentially this morning bang on 8 weeks post-surgical.
Yeah.
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 And that's not saying don't do the stuff you love, but I think
No.
you've had a big realization that, your body's your asset, especially when you're you're a health professional, someone that works with their body for a career. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
I bet it has. But hey, Jade, you've got a fantastic full-time CA for the last couple of months.
This is a big thing. And you know what Jake's like. Like, he's the most meticulously organised, systemised person. So our books are clean. Like, it's so good.
Oh,
it's not all.
Nice. But I bet you're looking forward to getting your hands back in it again soon, Jake, eh?
Absolutely. I cannot wait. And I'm doing the odd sneaky adjustment here and there with family. And Jade. But yeah, just really gauging and making sure the stability's there, and I've rehabilitated it properly.
Nice. Well, I mean, it's kind of helpful that you are, your partner is a chiropractor, so they can look after you pretty good during that healing cycle. Like, I'd really like to know, and this is more for, I'd say, listeners and people kind of thinking about starting out your own thing. What would be kind of like the top hitters that you need to start thinking about? So obviously we talked extensively before about, find where you want to be and make it relevant to your core values and all of that kind of stuff, which I think is really, really good. But in terms of actual practicalities, you have to have some finances behind you to open your own thing. You have to have some understanding of how a business works, what marketing is going to be the most appropriate for your environment, and actually get people in the door. So what's some kind of practical things that you've done that you've found has worked really, really well in terms of, say, getting a loan, making sure the lease goes through, making sure you're getting those new patients starting to come through?
Establish a really good relationship with a real estate agent.
Yeah.
We were really fortunate to work with two fantastic ones. They were always doing everything they could to find us the right space. They were going out of their way. And that, in terms of just finding the right place, that goes a long way. But the guy that ended up finding us this premise that we ended up in, he was basically the back and forth early on to get the majority of the negotiation done prior to engaging a solicitor. So it cuts down all your billable hours with the solicitor if you can get those bits and pieces worked through. And it takes a little bit of an understanding of I guess, contract law and that sort of thing, but people are always happy to answer questions as well, I found. Any question you have about terminology or any specifics, they're more than happy to help out there.
But yeah, so that's the thing, is you just ask for help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big one. And believe it or not, the business plan we produced we didn't actually produce it. Jade's was the last crew that actually did a business plan, right, in business for the fourth year class.
Yeah.
So that business plan that they use as a template, we, 90% utilised a lot of that content, a little bit of changing for the real world, but it went a long way in securing us some of the facilities we needed. But, different banks too. Some banks will look at new business, other banks won't. Some banks will actually be pushing new business lending, other banks won't. So it's just having an awareness of what's around you and what actually is available.
And the finance is a big thing. Like, it's figuring out what you can and can't, afford to do. And there were sacrifices that we had to make along the way as well. I mean, I wasn't ready to open a practice by myself without Jake. We needed that extra year. So, we saved our butts off during that last sort of, 15 months where I was working and Jake was studying. And there's some really good resources as well around. The book that we read was Leona Cook. It's called Just Tell Me Where to Start. She's a chiropractor. I believe she's in the States, and she basically went out on her own straight after college. And that was a really good resource because she walks you through things that you don't necessarily think of. Like, for me, negotiating a lease and getting a bank loan, and not that we ended up doing that in the end, but all that sort of stuff was very foreign to me. And it's like anything, you learn a new skill set when you have to do it. So, but yeah, having read about someone and gleaning ideas from people that have done it before, like you said, Ben, asking for help. I think it's important to learn as much about the process before you actually dive in with everything you've got. Yeah.
It does. Good on you. And then in terms of marketing, getting yourselves out there and getting your name known, what's worked out really well for you guys?
I think it's nothing revolutionary. Like we've just, we've not tried to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of other stuff going on when you first start a practice. So, it's what all of the great chiropractors tell you to do that works. It's doing health talks. We've done some screenings. It's
introducing yourself to different businesses in your area. Just being the friendly new chiropractor, saying, how's things going with you at the start of 2017?
Yeah.
We're a new chiropractic practice in town. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's those sort of things. Creating relationships is a big one. But I was quite fortunate in the fact that I grew up in this town, and a lot of those people have either returned or still here, and they've got young families, and without having a social media presence, they may not have known that we were back here and we were practicing. So just the basic stuff, having a presence on social media and not being afraid to reconnect with people from a previous life, I guess.
Networking's a big one. I think especially in a small town, it's definitely who you know. Word of mouth is huge over here, I guess, as it is with any place. But we joined a business networking group pretty much as soon as we'd started, and that was, that's been huge in terms of growth. When you're able to talk to someone or a group of people every single week about the principles of chiropractic, people get to know on a very intimate level what it is that you do, and as a result of that, they refer their family and their friends and their other colleagues in their office to you. So, yeah, networking's...
Nice. Well, it's just not being afraid to go out there and say hello to people, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was reading in a book the other day, I think it's that book we've just got, Tools of the Titans by Tim Ferriss.
I want that. It looks so good.
Get it. So good.
So good, man.
It's, what does it say on there? A collection of... basically the tactics, routines, and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. Like, who wouldn't want to read this book? It's little tidbits of information from all of these incredible people. I can't even remember who it was, but I just read a chapter in it the other day, and it talked about going first. So, not being afraid to just put yourself out there. And if you're at the bus stop or if you're at a cafe, not being afraid to just be that first person to say, hey, how you going? Because, people are innately nice, I think. People aren't jerks. And most people are just waiting for someone to say that first, and then, the conversation can follow on from there. So, going first.
Absolutely. And just jumping on that kind of resources talk, what different resources, YouTube videos, podcasts, books, people that you've met, who've been the kind of best resources for you in this kind of starting out process?
Well, and people that we've had the privilege of being educated by or working for as well, for that matter, like conversations with early on, conversations with Phil McMaster, conversations that Jade had with Simon Kelly, interactions we both had with Patrick Fong, he was an associate at Mount Eden, Mark Postles and Ash Pritchard. These are guys that, they're available and they're willing to help and they want to see you succeed. And I think if you were just happy enough to ask the question, they're and it might be a bit crude calling them resources, but in terms of helping us and guiding us, have been invaluable.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the college, like there is a wealth of information just sitting there, like beyond your lectures, beyond what you hear the day-to-day. Like a lot of these people have had incredibly successful practices, and they are just minds that are wanting to share with you and wanting to, give and for you to experience what they've experienced. So just, go first and don't be afraid to ask them about their experience. I'd be so happy to teach you and for you to learn from them. That's one thing I wish I did differently at school, was just, pick the brains of those amazing minds more frequently. Because once you're out of school, it's a little bit harder to find them from Australia, and you can still do it, but you're not interacting with them every single day.
Exactly. And then you kind of, really, this is definitely what I've experienced over the last year as well, is you kind of get stuck in the trenches of practice, where it's that day in, day out kind of checking, adjusting, marketing, looking after your new people, it's that kind of process that just starts to take over all of your time, and you have less, well, at least in my experience, it might be different for you guys, but had less mental space for growth, because it was all about, oh my God, I'm freaked out, I'm new in practice, is this going to work? Just getting used to it.
Yeah.
But it's making one of the things that this whole process with my knee has sort of uncovered for me, Ben, is, I guess, making that time for yourself and investing that time in yourself for your own sanity. But it does just free up all kinds of different resources, whether it be for growth, whether it be for fun, or your individual sanity, or time with loved ones and family. It's making that time for yourself first and making sure you're firing on all cylinders first.
Oh yeah, I mean that's honestly why I do this podcast. Because before then, I had no time for myself, and I love talking with people like you and learning from you guys and hearing your experiences and talking chiropractic. And for me, this is fun. I love doing this and reconnecting, and that's, for me, makes a really, really big difference. And as soon as I started doing that, all of a sudden my practice got better, my life was way more enjoyable, and it just kind of seems really funny or just kind of silly that I wasn't doing it before.
Unreal.
But you're right, you're so consumed by it, and I think that's like in chiropractic college, you go through and you're absolutely consumed by it. It's, you eat, breathe, think, sleep chiropractic for 5 whole years.
Yeah.
And you're always, we were talking about this the other day, you're always accountable to someone or something. There's always an assignment that's due, or a lecture that you've got to be at, or, an exam that's next week. And when you get into real life, I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, but you're not accountable to anyone but yourself anymore. I mean, sure, you might have a principal chiropractor, but at the end of the day, if you don't get off your butt, your practice isn't going to grow.
Exactly.
And so, it's finding a motivation, I think, outside of that timed, scheduled existence that you've had for however long you've been studying.
Agree. I agree with that.
Agree.
And that's where scheduling and things comes into it as well, and making time for yourself and actually chunking your day up so that it's not all practice, it's not all marketing or accounting, you're not always working on the business. You're actually allowing some downtime for yourself so that when you do go into practice, you're actually charged up and you want to be there as opposed to being cramped.
That's super, super important. I mean, you're looking after people all day, every day. You have to take some time to actually look after yourself as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So if some of the listeners just loved hearing what you guys said today, and they really want to kind of reach out, get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Definitely. So we have our Facebook page, Thrive Chiropractic Co, and we would be so happy to answer any questions. I mean, we consider ourselves still very much juniors, toddler chiropractors, but we're always happy to reach out and help people. If they could learn from our journey, we'd be so happy to help them.
100%.
Yeah, our best email address would be hello@thrivecc.com.au. You can reach us both on there. Probably the best one.
Pretty well summarised it, I think.
That is perfect. That is brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was awesome to catch up. Really awesome to hear about your journey so far. I'll have to get you on again soon and see how things are growing over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah,
Love to. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for all the support you've been showing this platform. If you have any ideas for future episodes or you'd like to be involved, send me a message through the website or your preferred social media. For the resources mentioned in this episode, check out the show notes or thechirosation.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and leave a comment on Facebook. Now go out there and start a chirosation today.